Good morning, everybody. It is 10 a.m., so we will go ahead and get started this morning. I am really pleased to introduce you to our newest speaker on our webinar series. We've talked a lot in the tobacco program about traditional versus commercial tobacco. And so we've invited our tribal partners from Turtle Mountain to come today and to explain tribal tobaccos or traditional, excuse me, my language matters, and that's why we're here today, and I can't even get my words out correctly. I don't know if Heather, you want to do a quick introduction. You've done a lot of work with coalition building, and that's kind of how this webinar came about. So I would turn it over to you to introduce our speakers today.
Thank you so much, Abby, and thank you to Jodi and her special guest joining us today. And I'll let her introduce her special guest since I haven't met her yet. I want to be respectful of that. But Jodi has been working with Turtle Mountain Public Health for a short period of time and has just dived right in. And I so appreciate you being willing to pass on some knowledge to those of us who just don't have it and are wanting to learn it, so that we can be more respectful and more purposeful as we partner with all of our partners across the state. And so, Jodi, I just wanted to personally thank you for doing this for us today. I know I'm going to learn a lot, and I'm excited to hear what you all have to share. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, good morning. So yes, as Heather just mentioned, my name is Jodi Hajicek, and I work for Turtle Mountain Tribal Public Health Department. I just started my position here in February, and I'm hired as the overdose prevention coordinator. However, I've done a lot of work in prevention over the past few years. I used to previously work, and some of you may know me from working at Rolette County Public Health District, and I worked there for a little over 7 years. So I come with quite a bit of knowledge on prevention and tobacco prevention, but mostly the opioid and substance abuse prevention. And the guest that I have with me here today is my mom. Her name is Brenda Slater, and I'm introducing her as just our Turtle Mountain Bandit Chippewa community elder. And so yes, today we'll talk a little bit about the differences between traditional and commercial tobacco. So I'm going to try and share my screen here if it lets me. Give me just a sec to see if I can do this. Sorry for this delay. Heather, maybe if I can email it to you quick.
Sure, that would be just fine.
Sorry about this.
No worries at all. I would just ask everyone to put themselves on mute. There is some speaking in the background, if that would be helpful for us. Thank you.
Okay, I just sent it to you.
Like we go north at Hotel and all this way. Right when you get there by Barbara Adler. Barbara Adler.
Perfect. And so then I'll also keep the chat open. If anyone has any questions as we move along, then we'll try and address those as we go as well, okay? So again, we'll talk a little bit today about the traditional versus commercial tobacco. And my name is Jodi, and this is my mom, Brenda Slater. You want to go ahead and switch slides. So a little bit of a disclaimer, as we say, only the creator or God is perfect. And so we do not seek perfection in this presentation, but instead seek to provide something that benefits our communities and helps us to be healthy. We understand that many American Indians, for several different reasons, still use commercial tobacco for ceremonies. We wish to educate people about tobacco that was used traditionally and do not wish to criticize or judge those who use commercial tobacco for ceremonies today. And we'll explain a little bit about that moving forward. We understand that commercial tobacco, unlike sacred traditional tobacco, is often easier to access, and often we'll find that. So that's kind of what we'll explain as we move forward. You can switch slides. All right, so for decades, Native American people from across the country have been forced to rely on commercial tobacco to meet our ceremonial needs. And this form of sacred plant has been modified by chemical additives to serve the needs of an industry and a commercial system that has no interest in honoring the role of what we call sacred tobacco as asema in our ceremonial lifeways. So this type of tobacco can serve as a weapon that harms our bodies. The idea of going to a gas station or a smoke shop as the sole surface of obtaining tobacco can lead to confusion between the beautiful, vibrant green plant that is a gift from our creator and other destructive forms of tobacco such as cigarettes, the vape products, chewing tobacco. So when these products are heavily marketed to our community, it's easy to form habits and use tobacco in non-ceremonial ways. Do you have anything you want to express on that?
So in the Anishinaabe language, we say asema, but in other tribes, they have a different term for tobacco. In ours, it's asema. And then also, there's a tobacco plant that grows in some regions. And then in Turtle Mountains, we use a lot of some of the trees, like the red willow. We use the bark, and it's like shaved down, and that's part of it. That's the beginning process of making our traditional tobacco. They add other things like rosemary and other things to make it smell better, but there is no nicotine in there.
Okay. So reconnecting our what? So the tobacco is our most important of our 4 sacred medicines. However, traditional tobacco preparation and use varies across tribes and regions because of the many different teachings and beliefs within the tribes. So we are Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. We're considered Ojibwe. And so there are different tribes within the United States and in North Dakota. And so everyone, I just want to make this known that everyone does have their own beliefs. So most of them, I can say, you know, resemble or kind of portray the same beliefs, just that they might have different origin stories and different things like that. Tobacco seeds are grown, and upon readiness, the tobacco leaves are then dried before being cut for use. Sacred tobacco is sometimes not just the tobacco leaves itself, but is a blend of a variety of plants. And we call this, again, this is our word, kinnikinnick, and it's made up from the bark from the red willow, just as my mom was expressing on how things are put together. So it's red willow bark, the mullein leaves, bearberry leaves, and then wintergreen leaves, which are then processed and mixed together. So many of these plants used are to be picked and harvested at certain times of the year, and they can only be found in various regions of the world. So a lot of times when you are mixing of your tobaccos, the kinnikinnick or the homemade tobacco like that doesn't, like she said, doesn't have the nicotine in it. It's just these plant bases, and we utilize what plants that we have in whatever areas we live. That makes sense? Okay, you can switch slides. So this again is our origin story. So this would be for the Ojibwe people. So sacred tobacco is natural. It's not inhaled or it doesn't have any type of additives and no nicotine to it. So before sacred tobacco was stolen from the indigenous people of the Turtle Island and brought back to Europe to be turned into cigarettes, there would only be one pipe carrier in a village who would sacrifice their physical bodies by bringing that sacred smoke to their mouth. In the words, unless you were a pipe carrier or a sacred tobacco carrier, the sacred tobacco was not used for smoking. So likewise, it's not a good idea to offer tobacco to young children until they were old enough to tell the difference between it being used as a medicine or it being used in cigarettes and vapes and chewing tobacco and things such as that. Our Ojibwe Native American origin story expresses that when Nanabuju, who was our first Ojibwe teacher, he's often told in our stories as where we have learned how things were developed for Mother Earth, first come from the sky world and being so taken with the beauty of Mother Earth. So when our original story says that when this person that was our first teacher came to the land, the first thing that he did was he tiptoed on Mother Earth because it was so beautiful that he didn't want to hurt anything. And so the first thing that he did is when he touched his toes, the first thing that his toes touched was that sacred tobacco plant. And so the first teaching that he received was to give that sacred tobacco as reciprocity before taking anything else from Mother Earth. So the sacred tobacco then represents the east direction. So we have a 4-direction belief, and often you'll see the 4-direction type medicine wheels that have the black, red, yellow, and white colors. So we say that the tobacco represents the east direction and was given to us, the Anishinaabe people, as a way to communicate with the spirit world. Excuse me. Go ahead.
So the other thing with what I was gonna say is that they smoke the tobacco, and it's the belief is that the smoke that comes from the tobacco is offered up, it goes up to the Creator. That's how your prayers were offered up, is through the smoke. Not everybody smokes like a pipe or smokes the tobacco. You can also offer it to Mother Earth by just putting it in your hand, saying a prayer with it in your hand, and then offering it out into like to a tree or to the ground somewhere, giving it back to Mother Earth. So it's not necessarily saying you have to smoke that tobacco. If somebody is not comfortable smoking through the pipe, or however they are presenting it to you for the prayer, you can just put it in your hand and offer it. So it's not like we never are pushing tobacco on anybody to have to smoke it.
Tobacco was always offered. So we used tobacco as one of our medicines, and it was always offered before picking other medicines. So before you would take anything from Mother Earth or the ground, we would offer tobacco to a plant and explain our reasons for being there to the plant. So what we would do is, in exchange, we would give Mother Earth. You always want to give something back to Mother Earth if you were taking. And so that's when we would do that. If you were out picking berries or picking different things for personal use, then you would want to say that you're grateful for those. And that was a way of using that tobacco to say that you were thank you. Tobacco is used as an offering, as a gift, and as an important part of our Anishinaabe ceremonies.
And in our traditional beliefs, everything has a spirit. So that's why we are offering that tobacco when we take something from Mother Earth, whether it's the water or a plant or whatever, a rock, whatever we're taking, we offer, because it is known and a belief that everything does have a spirit, because everything was created by the Creator.
I can switch slides. We kind of jumped ahead of ourselves. So this is kind of restoring traditions and reducing harm. So tobacco is used as a way to ask for permission and for forgiveness, and to give thanks for harvesting a resource. So for example, tobacco is offered when taking anything from the earth, such as in hunting, fishing, harvesting rice, berries, medicines, and other plants, as we kind of just previously mentioned. Often people will put tobacco out when they pass by an animal on the road while driving. And the idea behind this was, like, say, if there was some, like, if you're hunting and you're harvesting a deer or something, you're doing it in honor of that animal's spirit, and just saying thank you to the creator for giving up this life to help me with mine. So the tobacco is often offered at the beginning of an event to bless it, such as at the beginning of a powwow, moving into a new place, using a new car, at the beginning of a trip, before a talking circle, before the start of a meeting. And this just ensures that things are done in a good way and out of good faith. Ceremonial tobacco is utilized as a sign of respect and may be offered when asking for help, guidance, permission, or protection, being offered to the creator or to individuals among us. So when one person, if I'm offering tobacco, such as if I offered my mom tobacco to come and help me speak today, I'm asking for her time. And then a lot of times what happens is, then once somebody accepts that tobacco in our culture, it's like you've signed a contract with them. So it's similar to having that written agreement that you have said, yep, I'll accept that tobacco, and I'll come and I'll perform what I need to do for you in a good way, with good spirits and good intentions. Tobacco is commonly used in spiritual ceremonies, the most obvious being the pipe ceremony. And at some pipe ceremonies, only the celebrant smokes the pipe, and at others, everyone does. Ceremonial tobacco isn't smoked except for during special ceremonial occasions. So when it is burned in a pipe, it is not inhaled. And that's one of the important things, like my mom just said. So what they do is they'll take in enough from that pipe just to get the smoke to go, and they blow that smoke out immediately, and they're not inhaling it. And at this time, again, it's said to be the ceremonial tobacco that does not contain the nicotine. And so that smoke is what is carrying your message in your prayers. Each community has its own spiritual beliefs and practices, but as smoked as ritualistic exchange and a powerful teaching and healing tool, the smoke from the burned tobacco has a purpose of carrying thoughts and prayers to the creator, to God, or the spirit world. And so when using tobacco for prayer, we place it into our left hand while holding it, as she mentioned earlier, because it's said for us to believe that the left hand is closest to your heart. Ceremonial tobacco is sometimes used directly for healing in traditional medicines. And so sometimes you'll find that it's mixed with such as like our cedar and sweetgrass and some of the other medicines that are really promoted with our culture. And sometimes those are even burned. But again, it's not ever to have been really inhaled, and it wasn't ever to have really been exposed to the nicotine. The only thing I would say where that kind of has changed is because of the convenience of being able to access the tobacco already ready to use. And so there is a lot of people still to this day that will go to the store and purchase that tobacco that would contain nicotine and stuff just from the stores, because of its easy access to get to it. A lot of times too, that tobacco is given to when you're asking for somebody to help you or different things and stuff. And it's easier to hand somebody a bag of that tobacco than it would be to hand somebody a plant and having to do all that process of creating that original tobacco. Are you good?
Yeah,
You could stay on that side, Heather.
yeah, that's all right.
You got something?
I was going to say something and I can't remember what I was gonna say. That's the elder part in me. With the exchange of tobacco, like Jodi was saying, that sometimes it's like a contract when you offer somebody tobacco. But I also want you to be aware that when you do that and you ask somebody, they don't necessarily have to accept it either. They might have something going on and they can't accept it because of that contract buying, because that's how important it is. Once you accept that tobacco, you're bound into that. And so sometimes there might be a time that they can't fulfill that request. So they might just, and not to be offended by that. It's just that they're just telling you, I'm sorry, I can't accept the tobacco because, I got other obligations or whatever it is. And when you do accept the tobacco, you're also using that tobacco to pray for whatever you were asked to do, to be at a conference or whatever it is. So they take that tobacco and they are actually using that tobacco to pray for whatever they were asked to do.
A lot of times you'll hear at conferences and things like that, if somebody is to get up and say a prayer, and they're utilizing that tobacco for that prayer, is often for them to have good open minds, spirits, and for things to happen. What brought you to the conference? So you're all there for the same learning and same opportunities. And so for there to be peace and just open minds to learning and just good faith in what brought you guys together. And then often you'll hear like closing remarks, prayers, or things where safe travels back to your homes or different things like that. And so there's many different ways that people pray, and a lot of times we just use that tobacco as a way of offering our prayer to be heard, is our way of putting out that tobacco for that. So looking at this one now, so the 7 grandfather teachings is a gift of the Anishinaabe people. And so we utilize this as a potential tool for living a good life. Our understanding is that we use these gifts, our experience of living improves by having these connections. And so a lot of times this is what we try to teach our youth. And we teach our youth to have these 7 teachings, and which is love, respect, bravery, truth, honest, humility, and wisdom. Do you want to express some of that as to what?
Well, it's just what it is, the 7 teachings. I've always explained that it was the prophecies that came to us, and each one of these prophecies were taught to a little boy. And so he was taught each one of these, and it took a lifetime for him to learn about love, respect, bravery, and so on. But at the same time, I always say that it's not only just a part of our Anishinaabe culture that we have these teachings, because they are values, and values are for everybody throughout the world, throughout society. So no matter what culture you are, not just tribal cultures, but any culture, we all have our values. And, a lot of these words are similar that you'll find in other people's culture. So basically, again, we try to teach these to our youth, but as adults and elders, we also need to walk that ourselves in order for our youth to see that we're serious about it, that this is the way we have a good life.
And so one thing that I've found, especially working in prevention, is connecting people to their identity is very important, so that they understand where they're from and how they've gotten to be where they are at today. A lot of times somebody's history or past or any of their family histories and things like that are often what connects them to, what maybe substances they are using and abusing. And then so a lot of times you want to connect them back to their resources of what they can believe for either faith or what they have for support coming from family. And in our case, we often try to reconnect our people, whether it's young or old, to our culture, so that they have an identity, and hopefully that identity would help create enough strength within themselves to not use and abuse, whether it's tobacco products or opioids or different things. And so I really have been just trying to push, especially now working with within our tribal communities, is trying to push that culture really is prevention. And so I think I'm going to have a big focus on utilizing these 7 grandfather teachings as a way of connecting not only with our people, but with our youth and different things and the different entities. But I'm really glad to have had this opportunity even to speak with all of you today, just because I feel, as my mom mentioned, it's something that we all have no matter if you're Native American or not, we all have those values in life and what brings us back to either being connected to our communities or being connected to our, faith or different types of religion, but also to our families. And so in general, knowing what love is and knowing that it is just being devoted to something and having that, kind, tender type heart, the creator will create harmony with you because of having that love. When you talk about respect, a way to honor creation is by showing respect. And so that's where we try to teach young and old again to have those respect for things that you're either doing or taking, or, and that's where you can kind of intertwine that tobacco and giving back for things. And, you might need something, but then being able to offer something that you're good at as well. With the bravery, facing a problem with integrity is true demonstration of bravery. We do not, we do what's right, even if we know the consequences might be unpleasant. So a lot of times when you look at people in recovery or things like that, we know and have to try to see them they have to be brave to be able to face what challenges come, whether it's, the addiction or trying to get themselves off of that. When it comes to truth, it gives us the ability to act without regret. So we have to understand, be able to speak, and be able to feel truth for what we feel and what we're doing. And those are spiritual gifts that will help to guide us along that journey. With the honesty, facing a situation is to be brave, but having the courage to do so is the right thing. And that would be what honesty is. Humility is to know what we are a part of. We are a part of creation, and that we must always consider ourselves equal to one another. And so again, that giving and taking from Mother Earth, that giving and taking from other people, and just knowing that we reflect who we are, who we represent as people, and that you are not any better than any other people, and that all people should be created equal is kind of what that is, whether it's human to human or human to plants, human to animals, that kind of thing. Everything has a purpose. Every person has a purpose. And then lastly, the wisdom. So the mixture of these teachings combined with the experience of life is what we refer to as wisdom. It is given to us again by the creator for us to use as a good thing. Wisdom carries other meanings of intelligence and knowledge. And we must remember to listen and use the wisdom that has been taught by our elders, our tribal leaders, and our spiritual leaders. So we try to incorporate these, like, again, into just our beliefs of everyday living to help us be better people, to understand where we're all at and to not have a judgment on what we are doing and using. I think that's about the end of it. You can go ahead and switch to the next slide. We do have questions there. Does anybody have questions for us?
There is one in the chat. Have you ever considered traveling the state and sharing the story? So many people could take so very much into our lives and use for their purpose. Guess you got to take this on the road.
This is really crazy. So again, like I had mentioned earlier, I had previously done some work for Rolette County Public Health District, and I had worked there for a little over 7 years. And there was the only Native American in the building. And so it was an opportunity to be able to share with my coworkers there and stuff. And I had seen the need for it then and kind of touched base with their tobacco prevention person as well. And then when I started here at Tribal Public Health, and my very first day starting, my boss, Stephanie J, had a meeting with Heather, and Heather had just brought this to Stephanie's attention that, we kind of were looking for somebody to do this kind of thing and just needed this education to be, brought to light. And Heather was really asking that day of Stephanie, do you know of anybody that would be willing to do this? And all Stephanie did was turn the computer to look the face towards me, and she goes, we just hired her today. So this is not necessarily new material to us. I brought my mom in just because she's my support, and having that community elder, sometimes we all are continuing to learn. And so just having that resource and bounce it, she's trying to teach me, and then that generation just keeps going. So it is something that I would like to continue sharing with those that need it. Do I feel like I can get up and travel? I'm pretty swamped with my job here now, but I'm definitely willing to reach out. If people want to reach out to us for more of this kind of stuff, then I'm open to it.
Yes, because I was gonna just say, I think it would be nice if there was a hands-on type thing where a person can learn how to make that traditional tobacco as well. I think that would be nice. And sometimes when I've helped in other things like this, and it's nice sometimes to be able to have the traditional tobacco there, the nicotine, and do comparisons as to even when you burn it, the different smell, that you know which one is not good for you, things like that. Our pipes tell us that it's not good for us. I have a grandson that he didn't realize that he asks if he could use the pipe every now and then because it is a family pipe. And he wanted to use it one day and pray with it. And he used tobacco from the store that was it was almost like a pipe tobacco. And I told him, oh, I wish you wouldn't have done that because it clogged up the pipe. Just the stickiness of everything that the additives of that. So I have to work on my for the pipe to try to get it cleaned out again. So when you think about it, and I explained to him at that time that when you think about this stuff that's clogged up the pipe, this is what would happen in our lungs, and if with the wrong type of tobacco. So you can extend more on this and use examples in that sense. Because right now the pipe, the tobacco doesn't, the smoke doesn't come through the pipe stem because it's clogged because of the wrong type of tobacco being used. So just an example of sometimes it would be nice to be able to step up and bring those things to the table.
So I did put in the chat my email and my personal cell phone number. And if anyone, you can always reach out to Heather if you can't grab it off of here. She knows how to get in touch with me, and I'm more than willing to help. In any case, if anybody else wants to, compile a different group within your workspace or something like that, definitely reach out to me, and I'll make the time to visit with you guys or present again.
They can this too.
And then Heather, if you want to keep that presentation, you're more than willing to do so with that too. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jodi and Brenda. I really appreciate that the both of you took the time out of your days to do this with all of us. And I think we can definitely find some more opportunities for you to be able to share this knowledge, maybe at some of our, more regional events and conferences, or even just more webinar opportunities that TFND can help host, or whatever connections we can help you make. We are certainly willing to do that. But I just really value your experience and time. Okay, I'm trying to.
I do.
And I just appreciate so much that you are willing to do this to help us just be more knowledgeable and empathetic and understanding when we're talking about commercial tobacco, because we are so anti-tobacco, but really we're anti-commercial tobacco. And like Abby said at the beginning, words matter and language matters. And having this new language to be able to use in our work, I think is so valuable. So thank you so much for doing that with us today.
Yes, you're welcome. I hope that was what you were expecting as far as an understanding. And like I said, if you guys have any questions or any other concerns, or just feel free to ask me just about anything on it, and don't feel embarrassed, because what you don't know, there's no way of learning it otherwise. That not everybody is always open to it, but knowing the importance and having the background that I do with not only having a nursing degree, just being in prevention for the last 8 years has been where my true passion lies. And so understanding and being able to connect with your audience and understanding that you don't want to offend somebody, I totally get that. I'm willing to help bridge those gaps and help with the barriers of that.
I worked in education for 35 years. I've worked with elementary students, and I've always brought this into my classroom because I've never been a smoker. I never did pick it up. And I've always encouraged my students to know that, you know, that it's not good for you, it's not healthy for you, but yet we use it in this way. And so throughout those 35 years, I hope that I have made an impact on some students to never pick up commercial tobacco, but to be able to use it in a respectful way.
There's a lot of people nowadays that I know that are going back to actually creating and making the traditional tobacco, which is good to hear and know. But again, it was always that, you know, it was a lot of times it was a lost tradition for a while. And so it was easiest for our elders, especially, to just go to the store and purchase that tobacco that they needed to still use for, you know, those ceremonial purposes and stuff. So, but again, my nephew is younger than me and growing his own tobacco plants and stuff just for that ceremonial use. And so it's good to know that we're reaching the youth in some aspects of knowing that the proper way of doing things is to have it without the nicotine and additives, and that we're not necessarily still purchasing the commercial and kind of supporting that purchase in a sense. And I totally get that. I'm guilty of purchasing commercial tobacco for ceremonial uses myself, and it's just the convenience of things. But if there's no other questions, I think that's kind of what we have. But again, take note of my email or else my phone number on there, and any of you that are on this webinar today, please reach out if you need me. And like I said, I'm willing to help.
Thank you so very much for your very informative educational program for us. I popped the TPCP's statement in the chat. We've presented this before, but that is our statement. So when we're, you know, presenting, like they said, to youth and to making sure that, you know, when we're talking about commercial tobacco, we're not infringing upon their traditional tobacco and you know, avoiding that and being respectful and meeting them where they are. So that was our intent with this program today. I think they more than fulfilled that with their background and their traditions. And I truly appreciate both Brenda and Jodi for speaking. I don't see any other questions. So we will go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all for your time. We'll have the recording available. So I hope you can share this with others that can learn this important information in our tobacco prevention work. In our commercial tobacco prevention work. Words matter. Again, I'm losing it today. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.